Awesome. Welcome back, guys. Good to sit here again. This is Play Everywhere or Wave or Soul Shining Path Tarot or Our Moment. Let's just say Our Moment, because everything else is so quick to change, and especially now we're in very, very changing motions and times that it's easy to forget how much has already been done and what's being built on, and that's very much a big thing here. I'm sure you've all been sensing and feeling it, or completely ignoring it, because that's also a sense of when we start feeling and experiencing things growing, we can very quickly resort back to running away or shutting down, and it's a certain case of learning to relax through that experience, because it's just kind of giving us the opportunity to see the fact that things have been growing and that maybe we don't have the right nutrients or a big enough environment for it, or we've been in some way limited or are limiting ourselves, and the frustration of that is asking you to grow into who you are right now. So this is a bit of a mixture of modalities, but the main thing of it is if you found your way here, there is a high probability and likelihood that there's something of benefit for you, but that's really true for every moment. This is just a case of looking at many different relational fields for the meeting points, and how it is that we can, anyone, choose to say, this is it. This right here is the moment of change, the complete moment of choosing to be not just a new human, but all you have ever been. And that opportunity is always presented. And in many ways, there's no requirement for any outside experience, so much as an internal realization. But we are alive, we are human, we get to be here. And that's where it's about learning how to really give thanks for that silence, that space between things, and to see it as an opportunity to grow into. Just like plants reach out and grow, not just through the nutrients and things like that, but the spaces of air in the soil. That's how the roots actually grow and take in nutrients. We benefit from spaciousness, from relaxation, from planting the seeds that you will actually want to grow and continue to be present with all your life. And now is very much a space where the stillness, even if you're in still space, even if you've cultivated still points, there's so much chaotic expression that's been happening that it's kind of flipped the script. Like your life that you knew, that there's that Fresh Prince of Bel-Air song where it's, my life was flipped right upside down. And it's a case of being okay to allow that reorganization to occur, because while it looks like chaos, it's actually just bringing you to the eye of the storm. And that's when it's a case of, yes, things might break and destroy and be cast anew, but it's waves of a greater self coming into view that you're allowing now and learning to accept. And the acceptance itself is a form of trust, because we accept that which we can trust or that which we can't change. And there's a certain degree of patience for the way in which these notes of life, these experiences are coming into being, and those cycles being resonant to broader patterns of self. And these are very much about directing us. Like in a song or a dance, where it is that there's a certain motion or expression. There's not just an individual dancer and the music, it's the music and the dancer creating a harmony between the two. And the field of living being a reminder for the fact that we are not just in this, but also as it. And that's also where the fact that this is our space. I am here speaking and I've created this video and all of that stuff, but there's been the various experiences of life which have led me to this moment, and to choose to say, okay, cool, these are the skills, these are the present pieces, this is what is available, this is what's here, let's trust it, let's allow it, let's move forward with it. And that's very much what this new moment of silence in its own way is about, finding your own way to move more readily forward and into who you have been and are choosing to become. And that's the greatest decision of all, is the chosen choice to be. Because out of all of these various modalities, experiences, expectations, expatriations, for some reason. There's an infinite number of possibilities, but there are only so many that really speak to you. And it's in that way knowing that the ripples of life that have been appearing, the synchronicities, the flow moments, however you want to see, call, or shape them, they've been bringing something to your awareness, some level of completion of what it is. And you'll notice that these completions look different. There's been some which are highly logical and kind of just pointing you to the realization that you can't necessarily keep going the exact way that was gone, or that people have gone before you, because it was just an anchor weighing you down. But it's almost like, because that's the first step, but then the second one is realizing that that anchor is also a hook, because it weighs you down and then it hooks you in the sense of security that it's created. So it's a certain degree of needing to step free from that and just be in the space that is alive. And that leads you to your second one, where it's the acknowledgement that everything is out of mind. There's just the case of how can you show up with a degree of groundedness for that, and excitement for what's building, and making sure that you know that you don't have to put more energy into it than is already available. And this itself is the reorganizing principle, is where you might have previously gone and felt the need to force things and keep to, let's say, neurotypical or just typical level. And I use neurotypical because where with normal it's an individual's perspective, neurotypical we can at least see what that normal is largely informed by what is perceived as neurotypical and what everyone is assumed to be. And that's okay, but it's a case of if that's not working for you and it's been leading to detrimental experiences for you or others, then re-examining it through a greater perspective and kind of asking, well, what are you alive for? Is your destiny just to be a worker bee? Because if it is awesome, that's epic. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But even as that, you still realistically have a rich internal world that deserves an opportunity to be shared and to provide these little glimmers of light to other individuals along their path. And that's where it's a case of it's about going back, but not for the I need to rehash this whole thing and this is stuck or whatever. It's a case of how can I show up? How can I be the best part of myself for what is currently happening and what has happened, and kind of allow all of these pieces. And with this, there's a certain break of routine, where it's kind of recognizing the natural exit point of something that you were kind of bubbling in through for so long. It's this natural perspective of life, and it's a certain degree of an archetype, a version of yourself, a character, who you've become. And it's learning that whole game, that maze that you were going through, was actually just a training ground, shall we say. It was a space for how you could learn how to move and shape in a number of ways that were useful to not just you, but to many other people. But now that you've, let's say, finished that level, or that level's not the right word, because it's not about levels, it's more about that degree of internal dance. You've learned the first steps, let's say. Now that you've got those more waxed, it's more a case of how can you now start applying these pieces. And this is when it's about, kind of just trusting and enjoying it, which is the big part of relaxation, where we relax not just because, it's good and my nervous system should be calm and all of these various pieces. It's about, there's life here. There's life living and being present in this moment. And that's amazing. So taking that time to experience that and revel in it, and still do all the things you want to do, because there's so much incredible life to be lived and things to be created and just experience. But remember to enjoy the small moments as well, because there are no small moments. And the more that we can honor and gratify them and give real thanks to their experience, the more that we allow them to live through us. And that's, that's kind of the practice of seeing your own practice, and there was this interesting experience in picking up this pen, because when I looked at this pen, I was like, okay, what pen am I going to use? And it's like this one, and it's probably one of the most affordable pens. It's a really good pen, to be honest with you. It's just a little bit thicker than I actually like to write with, and that's just because I like the nuances of a thinner pen. But as a pen itself, it's really good. It's great for drawing. It's a good pen, But there's that expectation and that judgment of the tools that you're using, and the fact that there could or should be better ones. And that's where it's very much about, in materialism perspective, as we so often see, it's about having the best or more or whatever. It's not so important, but to know that what you have right now is perfect. You're in the perfect position to start whatever it is you want to do. And it's about this level of complete enthusiasm to it, to the fact that you get to do it. You get to be in the beginning stages of whatever you're going to do. The doing is not so much the important part, because it's going to need to be done again and again and again, and so many more times than we even really begin to realize. But the joy of getting to, of painstaking, like taking pains on, not because you're masochistic or anything like that, although power to the people, but rather because you get to develop yourself in whatever area of life you want. And starting now, like, I know it seems tiny and realistically feels late, but it's perfectly on time, because what you're wanting to create, if you found your way here, is realistically a little bit ahead of the curve from what most people tend to think of. Like there's probably some experience of what you do, or expectation from what is done, but you're realistically someone that has been gifted with a certain degree of awareness of what the world can still come to, and is coming to. It's not even a can, it is, it has and will continue. So create the space you wish existed for you, and enjoy it. Enjoy each and every moment of it, because it's coming into being, because you can feel it already, and that itself is the first step of it. And then learning how to enjoy each moment thereafter. The day you plant the seed is not the day you eat the fruit, but it's sure as hell a good time to plant the seed and to look after it. And that's where it's, there's a current shift in that way of having been someone that maybe doubted yourself, and now coming to, or not even doubted yourself so much as took other people's opinions on more than you had been learned and imprinted to value your own. And now it's a case of like seeing the expression of that, and how as soon as you've brought in more self-love and then love for people, you see that those tracks are maybe parallel, but you can take what they're saying as good for them, but it doesn't need to always hit the mark for you. And it's now learning to actually then come and then still project and experience the love that you hold for them as a whole. And that's where it's kind of seeing, or beginning to plant and continue to feed, the view of the world as an interconnected network. Like mycelial networks, or connected consciousness, or however you're wanting to view it. I really don't mind. But to see it that all of these experiences and people and places and synchronicities, flows, whatever, are happening as pointers in a divine mind of our experience, of what it is that we are being ferried towards experiencing as we continue to live and show up. And this is where it's like, there's a very real degree of cultivation of you and your own self and your own isness, as opposed to what people think you should be, or project you as. And it's in the sense of like, it's very much, that excited child experience where it's like, oh, I want to do this, this, and this. And then, where we're reclaiming that inner child, it's about saying, okay, this is step 1. This is what I see as step 2, and then this is where I see step 3 being. But that then actually has a whole shadow that it's connecting to, illustrating your whole self. And that's then, like, it's very much just about playing with it, because And that's always happening. Spend a little bit of time just reflecting and contemplating. It's not meant to be a heavy exercise. It's just meant to be a like, whoa. Like, even if you look at like a shadow, there's an angle from where the light has to be in order for the shadow to fall that way, which tells you the position of the light, the intensity of the light, the color of it, and all of these various elements. It's rich with information, and that as you continue to just look at that as an experience, not as a what's the result, but as a what's the process, you naturally start to become aware of these different processes that can occur within this experience, and where you are for each of those to experience. And that, as opposed to needing to feel lost, you're more just realizing the projection of experience. And that projection itself is protection, but in two ways, because you're protected from the pain to a degree, which is good and bad, but it also means like why take any, like, I don't know, because like the wording is a bit funny, but it's about not taking life so seriously that you don't take it seriously, if that makes sense. And it kind of does, but it doesn't, because it's a case of, with everything that's going on, life is the single most important thing to value. Your life, your experience, your values, yourself, but not in a limited view of it's just about me, but in the expanded view of it, it's about all of us. And it's about living in a way that I'm not saying like give everything up for everyone else, but live a life that you're meeting yourself through everyone else. And as a result of that, what you plant today will lead to the next piece. Specifically when you choose to just provide the little space for it to do that. Because it's about knowing that there is some experience that you're having, and that hasn't stopped, no matter what, from any perspective that you might have. And whether you're conscious of it or not is kind of the bigger thing, and learning to begin to integrate some level of consciousness of something that lights you up, and there's so many different words and modalities and experiences and people's perspectives, and that's okay. Like, yours really doesn't have to be theirs or resonant with them or anything, but it's just about beginning to integrate more of a sparkle for you, because it makes your life easier, and as soon as your life is made a little bit easier, it begins to make the lives easier of others. And this is really, like, I want to say kind of weird experience, where it's a case of, as your life becomes easier, the capacity and willingness to make your life more difficult increases, because you now have the spaciousness to do so. And it's like you've now created this spaceship, this mobility system of saying, well, things are good.